So yesterday we were talking a little bit about subtractive synthesis and using something that has a complex wave or a complex spectrum and whittling it down a little bit with a filter. And we found some cool things. If you start with the regular tone, it's one kind of thing, but when you get down to the really low frequencies, you get these individual impulses. And then if you drive the filter too hard, which I'm not going to do now because it'll distort, you can get these cool kind of like resonator kind of things. It kind of feels like a percussive thing where you're striking something, you're exciting something, and then it's resonating. And these, by separating out these two concepts, we can have kind of some fun. So the first thing I want to do to make this work is I want to make an exciter that I can trigger very discreetly. So like a single click, a single excitation. So I'm going to make my own little click object, DIY style. So that's all we really want, is that change that the square wave generator, the rect tilde object, the square wave generator was doing, where it would go from 0 to very high to very low and 0 again. So I'm trying to remember if Max has a click object built in. I believe it does. That's pretty cool. Is it self-contained? It is. But if we're going to build one of these things from scratch, oops, I can turn on the audio now because nothing's going to constantly generate tone. Cool. Okay, this click appears to go full positive and then back to 0. I would like it to be a little more bipolar. So I'm going to make an envelope. So we'll create a list of destinations and times. So we're going to go pack, and we want to go 0, 0. So we starting at 0, and then we want to go to full amplitude instantaneously, and then we want to go to negative amplitude instantaneously, and then we want to go back to the 0 point. So it's in the kind of neutral zone. So we don't have this DC offset where it's building up in the positive side of the oscillation or building up in the negative side. We want it to be even. All right, we'll use this to drive a line tilde object, which will generate an audio signal. And we can trigger it with a button. Little bang bang. Interesting. Just making sure I have all my numbers right. Seems pretty quiet. Let's make it more intense. And then, and let's see, these are in milliseconds. Let's see how, maybe we can go there in a short amount of time rather than instantaneous, like 0 time. Let's go there in a fraction of a millisecond, see if that actually will drive. And then let's increase the amplitude. I was going to scale the audio signal, but then I was like, why don't we scale the audio signal? We can just create a more intense audio signal. Nice. All right, I'm really curious if it's actually going negative or not, because the plot is only displaying positive. Here's a way to test that. Let's go negative first, see if that displays. Nice. And then let's see if we can take longer to go positive. All right, the longer it takes, the more energy is added, the more number of samples that are separated from 0. So we get maybe a more intense sound. So it's not just the absolute deviation from 0, but the number of samples that are deviating from 0. Cool, that's pretty exciting. I'm going to take this back to full scale, just because I don't want to. There we go. We are seeing some positive and negatives. It's just the scope, the resolution, the time resolution on the scope is probably not fine enough to catch this thing. Cool. So we have an exciter. Now, as you've seen before, the screen gets full of real estate really quick, like used up all the real estate really quick, all these little objects and things like this. So let's take advantage of something that Max lets us do, and let's encapsulate some of these things so that we don't have so much real estate used up by things that are ultimately just a single function. So let's highlight the things that we want to encapsulate and right click it and see if there's an encapsulate command built in to the drop down menu. There's not, so it's something. I only know the key commands. I've been doing this for a little too long. So sometimes I forget where things are. So on the Mac, it's in the edit menu, and the key command is shift command E. On the PC, it's shift control E. This makes us a little subpatcher. We'll just call this click. Then we can look inside and say, oh, look, there's that little bit of code that we made before. If we were being like really disciplined, we would do things like we would comment bang, click, audio, click, and then we'd go inside of these things and we would say what's inside of there. So it's this inspector. We want to comment the inspector and say click, audio, click. Oops. Oh, I'm on the Mac. I was doing the hotkeys on the PC and getting a different result than I intended. Bang to trigger click. So in Mac's, bang is the message that is used to trigger things. All right, cool. So same functionality, just less real estate on the screen. Awesome possum. So let's explore some other resonators. We played with the state variable filter yesterday. Super fun. Easy to use, that pitch, frequency and resonance as two controls. Super sweet. Let's play with some other ones like low res. So this one has the same idea. We've got frequency and resonance. And oops, don't want to drive those with the same control. That would be dangerous. And this frequency is going to be a larger range of numbers, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let's click this in. Let's see here. Let's default this to something useful. Let's go 100 hertz and 0. Let's make it really resonant. 0.9. Okay, that might be too low frequency. Let's go to a higher frequency. Okay, we're hearing something. Let's see, how hard can we drive it before things start to get gnarly. Let's lock the patch so we can control the widgets. Oh, there we go. And if we drive this thing to 1, we get full-on resonance. Nice. Let's get just below 1. Nice. When we get into the lower frequencies, I have the volume down pretty low, so it's harder to hear things at the lower frequency. That is partially due to the perception of sound, and partially I think the literal amplitude of this filter is lower, and that's in part because a click is an ideal instantaneous all frequencies for a very short amount of time. So if the frequency of the low pass filter is higher, then more frequencies are passing through the filter. If it's lower, less frequencies. So if it's, let's say, an equal amount of energy across all of the frequencies for that very short amount of time, and our filter is set to only allow like 100 hertz worth of frequencies through, or 100 hertz bandwidth worth of energy through, then that's less energy going through the filter than if we had it up to 1,000 hertz. So that'd be a lot more total energy passing through the filter. So it makes sense that this would be lower amplitude output at lower frequencies. So, if we were making like a custom product and we really wanted that frequency response to be relatively flat or perceptually flat, we would adjust the gain as we adjusted the frequency. We'd tie the two together with lookup tables or something of this nature. That would give us that nice even response. So if you sent a click into the resonance set at 100 hertz, it would come out at a reasonable amplitude relative to 1,000 hertz. And if you put it to like something like 4,000 hertz, something that we're very sensitive to, you would want to have the gain reduced a little bit, because just listen to the perceptual difference in amplitude between these versus this might not even play through most people's sound systems. All right, so let's look at some other ways of making resonance. Some other filters, like let's check out Biquad. Whoa, this guy's got some features to it. Wow, on earth did we control this? Oh, gain feed forward coefficient 1, feed forward coefficient 2, coefficient 1, 2. What on earth is going on here? What is a biquad? And like, how does this thing work? Oh, okay. So we have this kind of filter design. What do the coefficients mean? This is the thing I wanted to actually zoom in on. So a biquad filter is really a series of delays, 2 feed forwards, 2 feedbacks, and then some gain controls. So the feed forwards are just 1 sample each, the feedbacks 1 sample each, so very, very incredibly short delays. And then the coefficients are just these gain controls, A1, A2, B1, and B2. So if a filter, so biquad is pretty much at the core of all your EQ filters, which, let's see if we can, yeah, if you have, you can do a simple EQ or you can do a complex EQ. Let's do a real quick demo. Let's bring in Cascade, which is really just a bunch of it's a bunch of biquad filters controlled by a filter bank. Let's throw this guy in, see what sort of madness we can produce with it. This is going to look a lot like your EQ from your DAWs. You have your kind of bandwidth controls and cutoffs, and you can be precise, or you can just kind of mouse around. Right? If we start stacking all of these, if we make them boost, and we put them all in the same frequency range, we should get this might be a bit much. Okay, not too resonant. But if we go through the roof, we can get some cool resonance out of this. Now, being that it's a cascade, I've got some great control over the things through this filter bank, or filter graph object. If we type in a new object and go filter graph, we get this thing. And you can make it with lots and lots of filters, just like EQ8 on Ableton Live. But I can't get into the guts of things. And sometimes that's what I want to do. I want to get into the guts of things. That's the whole point of having this open-ended toolkit like Max, is that I'm not just using an end product that already works. I'm getting into things, one, because it's fun to learn about them, and two, well, maybe there's something I can control in there that would give me a unique musical output that isn't already in a pre-packaged wonderful music production toolkit. So let's get in it. Let's make some delays. So we have 2 types of delay in Max. We have a delay that is within, it's delay tilde. This is a very simple delay, and it's delay by samples. So if you're making a biquad system, no, you can't use this. You could only use this from feed forward, because here's the weird thing about Max is you can't take a signal path and feed it right back into itself. This actually will shut off my audio, and nothing will happen downstream of this. If I get rid of this feedback loop, I should be able to get my sound back. Right, that's the unfiltered click. If I have my signal, my direct signal and my delayed signal, I actually get technically a slightly filtered sound. If we want to see this more visually, make it easier to see, let's just generate some noise and do the same thing. Cool. So taking a signal, delaying that same signal, and combining it with itself, we get some cool effects. So we know that a little bit from Biquad, but we can see it there if we just take two signals, delay one, and add it back to itself. But I want a delay that I can feed back into itself. That's going to be kind of important to doing all this fun stuff. So in Max, the audio delay that you can feed back is built in two objects. It's a tap in and a tap out. And these two objects are, what do? They break the signal vector so that you can feed back, and the sample that's coming out here is another vector after the sample that's being processed in here, so you don't get an instantaneous crash of numbers. So we have to define a maximum delay. Let's just do 100 for now, and then we can vary the delay over here. And let's take a listen. Let's have the signal and itself. So you hear a very short slapback feedback, slapback delay. Right. And this gets fun when we take a multiply object and we create a little loop going back. If I can, I'm going to route the patch cord so I can kind of see that it's going out and back in. That's not always visually apparent, so maybe and each of you will kind of come up with your own routing convention. I try to do, if I'm being like really precise, I try to do routed chords on coming from one side and angled chords coming from the other, just so it's a little easier to see when things are crossing. Let's see if I can route this patch cord to be consistent. All right, so we have a little bit of a feedback loop. Let's throw a control on that so I can play with it. And let's lock the patch and click. Oh, we get a little echo here. And let's shorten that up to like 20 milliseconds, and let's make this feedback like 0.98, and we should get a little bit of a buzz. Oops, I went negative. That's bad. So we can get some scale notes here by changing the delay time. Now, if we were going to do the math in your head, it would be like, all right, the frequency I want to get is so many cycles per second. The inverse of that is so many seconds per cycle. So many, and divided by 1,000, that's how many milliseconds are there in a cycle of the frequency that I want to play. At least you can kind of conceptually wrap your head around that. Practically, we might want to just do the translation math and not have to think about it too much. Let's make a new object and let's grab translate. And let's see if there is a note to mode. Can we do note values? Yeah, let's do note value to millisecond. note value ms. So one tricky thing with routing patch chords is you have these lines that go all over the place. And then let's use an integer. And let's see, do we know any things off the top of our heads? I don't know any quick ones, but let's just check and see if I type in 55. That should have produced a number. Okay, I'm doing something wrong. In plural, note values plural. There we go. Interesting. Well, there's another way to do this. It's a little easier. Let's just do frequency. Let's make sure that this works. So this should be inversely proportional. Perfect. And then we'll just do MTOF, MIDI to frequency. And then integer. I'm running out of real estate. I'm going to have to encapsulate soon. Nice. So now we can just play a chromatic scale. Nice. So we have a basic resonator now that is pitch tunable, and technically this is a little bit of a Karplus-Strong model, and that Karplus-Strong is a feedback loop with a low pass in it. The tap in tap out pair, I believe, have a tiny bit of filtering built into them, but if we were going to be like super honest, we would actually make a little bit of a filter. Let's use state variable filter again. That guy's fun. If we put a little bit of a filter in the and like not a very strong filter. We just want a little bit of the very high frequencies to be reduced, and we want to prevent DC buildup. So we're going to high pass things a little bit, and we're going to low pass things a little bit, maybe high pass things a little bit, and then I always try to whenever I high pass something, let's go down to 50 hertz or so, something we're not, as long as we're not intending to excite subwoofers. 50 hertz is a cool cutoff point. All right, and this is where feedback loops get a little messy, because I'm going to go here, I'm going to route the patch chord, and then I'm going to come back out of this whole patch back into here. Let's see if we can route that patch chord. And of course, it's going to route whichever way it sees fit. For clarity, I'm just going to route it back out and around again. So this might be a little bit dangerous. I have no protection if we overdrive this thing, which maybe I'll show you. It will cause the state variable filters buffers to overload, and it'll freeze, and then there will be no audio. Cool. And we might have filtered it too much. Let's get right up to the danger zone. Make sure I didn't do anything that absolutely destroys this thing. Okay, so here we are overdriving the feedback loop, which actually self-noises and creates a go to like middle C or something like this. Okay, we are feedbacking too hard, which means that I have done something naughty. That's what you get for winging it. Let's see, low pass. Let's cut off a much higher frequency, let more energy into this system. really should. Oh, is that rumbling at, sorry, that's like rumbling at 50 hertz. Sorry if those of you who are playing with subwoofers. I think I've taken too much energy out with this. Let's just low pass it. Ooh, fun times. So we can get some nice string modeled sounds again. And we can get some otherworldly sounds if we drive this thing way too hard. Now, if I were being like super safe, I would actually use one of my pre-built objects called Soft Clip. This object does some crazy math and prevents overdriving the signal. This actually came from Max programmer Peter McCullough. He taught Max at NYU for a long time. I think he teaches at Vanderbilt these days. Or Vassar. I think it's Vassar. So the soft clip just protects me from overdriving. You'll notice the amplitude doesn't go past this point here, no matter how much I overdrive the system here. I still have some resonance. So this can be really, really fun. Now, one last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get this number range a little more secure, because I'm not a huge fan of that ability to get out of control. So I'm going to Z-map. I'm going to Z-map a MIDI range, because that's easy to work with in Ableton Live and with MIDI controllers. And the lowest I want to go is 0.98, and the highest I want to go is 0.9999. And let's grab an integer to control this little guy. Throw it in here. Cool. So that this way, no matter how far I go over or under, it's never getting into the illegal zone. Maybe I need to make it 9998. Oh, I forgot. Something I always like to do when I use state variable filter is I like to filter out the center frequency of the filter itself. So I go to the notch output. Oh, I did notch instead of bandpass. That's what I did wrong before. There's the extreme gain I was expecting. All right, I still have control here, so okay, that is too much. Yes, I have been bad. So filter tuning is another whole nother experience. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of math. Yeah, I'm still getting that resonance right there. So let's take it up to 997. Let's see if that gets us. Oh, we're still in the danger zone? Well, let's just do 99 then. Let's just do something fun. Let's tie together the pitch that we are using to drive the system to the filter so that it's in sync. it's a double resonance, which is cool when I have the protection circuit in there, the soft clip, but is not cool when I don't. This would feedback out of control without that soft clip circuit. So let's make it so they're not the exact same frequency, because I think that's over resonating. Let's go for 2 octaves above the frequency that's resonating. So it's still kind of in tune, but not quite so severe. Right, so you get some control of cool things when you have a feedback loop, but you also get the danger zone, which can be kind of frustrating. So let's take this whole thing for a minute and wrap it up. Let's see what is interesting to control here. The pitch of the filter and the feedback. Let's encapsulate this for a half second. Danger zone delay. All right, so we've got that for a half second. Let's play with one other that has a little bit of protection built in. Let's play with comb tilde. Same kind of idea. When we run our audio in, run our audio out, we have a delay time in milliseconds, and we have some feedback and feed forward coefficients. Let's borrow all these coefficients so we can quickly build something. All right, so the first argument is the delay time, which is corresponding to our frequency controls, and we need then the feed back coefficient. Where is this? Feed forward, feed back. So same idea as the other patch. In fact, we're going to just borrow all of it. We're going to borrow this guy, and we're going to borrow this guy, and we're going to reproduce them here. Oops, missed. Let's try that again. There we go. And here's why encapsulation is so much fun. I'm just going to encapsulate this whole thing. Danger zone comb. So let's set this guy to some number 100, which is again scaled from 0 to 127 to a range between 0 and 1, but we're most interested in the high end of that range. And then we have the pitch in terms of note numbers that is then associated with delay time, which is period in this case. And I turned off the DAC in the other patch, which is why it was off in here. And comb filter has some of its tuning already kind of sorted out, its feedback loop tuning. Now, the nice thing about a comb filter with a feedback loop is that there's a little bit of a low-pass filter in the system. So as it feeds back into itself, even though I'm not putting as much energy into the system when it's low-passed, that feedback loop is continuing, so that energy builds up. So the lower frequencies tend to resonate longer than the higher frequencies. So there's a maximum in this guy of 15 milliseconds. I'm going to make that maximum much higher. Let's make it 4 times that. Let's make it 60 milliseconds. And let's see if we can get a nice long low note. Now, as you can hear, we have a very typical cone filter sound, and it's great. It kind of has a Karplus-Strong string model that's also cool. But what I would like to show you as the last example is a pre-built feedbacking system with a tuned filter in the feedback loop. So I will show you the guts of this thing real quick once I get the controls connected. We need pitch, per usual, and the feedback is pre-scaled, so I need to borrow this guy. Oops, I don't need to find something. I meant to paste. Paste. Doop. Where was that? Feedback. Q is another story. So this guy should give us a nice quality of sound. Right, and that is all happening because there is a tuned filter in the feedback loop. So we have our delay, we have the protection, the soft clip protection, we have the cascade, which is the filter object we were playing with at the very beginning of this, and then we feed back into itself. And that cascade is a tuned bandpass filter that stays with the pitch of the instrument and gives us just a different tonal quality, which sounds wonderful when you distort it. So if we go to overdrive, maximum overdrive, see if this sounds okay. So this can be I think we need more overdrive. There we have some fun things we can do with exciters and resonators. We can use built-in resonators. We can play with delays, though there is some real danger in having uncontrolled delay loops. As you can see from my struggling with it, even though I've worked with this tool for years, there's things that I forget. But the nice thing about this tool is also you have the ability to forget things, because you can build something once that works, that tunes, that is working in a very sensitive space where messing around with the parameters would kind of self-destruct the system. And you can build that whole system, document it reasonably well, and then reuse it for all sorts of cool musical projects in the future. All right, I think we'll end it there. Thanks for watching, y'all. Oh, am I still recording? Should probably stop that.